Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is Podcast. I'm excited to welcome the host of the Love Is Podcast, Kim Sorrell. Kim, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest.
Hey, Neil, I'm doing great. And yes, I'm very excited. Catherine Lidstone, you're like who everybody wants to be, I think. You are so multifaceted. You're a great actor and you write songs and you sing beautifully and you play the viola and you play the guitar. You probably played seven other instruments and graduated top of your class and ran cross country and played tennis. And oh my gosh, you just do so much. You are voted most likely to succeed probably in high school.
Wow, you guys did so much research. I'm amazed.
And
Yes.
you're in one of my favorite shows that we're going to talk about a little bit, but you've got this upcoming movie that is going to be absolutely fantastic. But you play Mary, a
Yes,
childhood friend of Jesus, Lazarus
that's
and
right.
Martha's sister in The Chosen. And I love you in that. What is that experience like for you?
Oh my gosh, it's just been a wonderful experience from like start to be end. I just feel like it's it's not over. We're still, planning next season, but I'm just like amazed at what's been happening. I'm shocked by it. I love it. I have such a blast working with everybody on the project and we're just telling such a cool story. So I'm really, really blessed.
You
Yeah.
never thought it was going to be this big, did you,
No,
Catherine?
I don't think anyone did. I have this fun story of having run into one of my co-stars from the show when he first got cast in the first season. And we were hiking just randomly with our own people, and we ran into each other on a hike in LA. And he was describing it. He's like, "Yeah, nobody knows what's going to happen. It's just this low budget show out of Texas about Jesus." And I was like, "What?" I immediately I was interested, but of course nobody knew what was going to happen with it. It's been amazing to witness.
Yes, and from what I understand, the cast and crew are like one big happy family. Like it's a wonderful set to work on.
Yes, it's very, very fun. I feel like everyone's very welcoming, jovial, just a lot of great energy, a lot of jokes, a lot of fun. It's good. It's a good set.
That's good. So fun. So you've got this new movie coming, 47
Yes.
days. Yeah, yes. 47 days with Jesus. And I love the premise of the movie, but it just looks like it's going to be so interesting to watch and
Yeah.
fun to watch. And Philip Yoshi, who plays Philip in The Chosen, is your
Yes.
husband in the
That's
movie.
right.
And yeah, so how did this whole film come about?
Well, I remember receiving it as an audition just for my agent, normal standard practice. And I was traveling at the time, so I was scrambling to get it done for them. And then fortunately, they were able to just book off of the first call, which was very helpful for my crazy itinerary. But then I had to fly back a week early to do the table read, so it was very adventurous right from the start. And I just remember being really moved by the script. I felt like the storyline is not the typical Hollywood storyline of a marriage in strife, and that's where you meet these two characters. Is they're not going through a good time. They're dealing with normal day to day issues, and the kids are suffering, and the wife is suffering, and the husband's trying to keep it all together for work, and so it's a very common story, a very relatable story, and I liked the way they approached it. I felt like it was very unique.
It sounds like a unique story. And when you like a script as an actor, this is what it becomes exciting, right? A project that you like, who the script, you hope you get the part and you hope that you can be able to be part of a project like that. Is it hard sometimes when you get rejected? Because I
Oh my
know
god.
it's got to be. I've talked to so many actors and I have no idea how you could do it. I think in sales, when I'm doing multiple sales, I'm almost in the same boat as like I started looking at numbers for my agency. So the number of people I talk to who say yes versus no, I'm starting to say, hey, I'm going to create a numbers game thing. And this is a percentage. So you got to get through all these people to get the next sale. It's the same thing in acting, but I always get frustrated when I'm in it. I really love this. I want to work with this person. It just doesn't happen. How do you deal with
Mm-hmm.
that to go on to the next one so you're not in your mind saying, why didn't I get this project?
Oh boy. Fortunately, I think what helps me a lot with that is I am very constantly busy and working on other things. And so whether that's other auditions or if that's a whole different genre of audition, like a voiceover or a commercial job, I think my mind is so occupied by all those different things that I don't really get extremely frustrated like I normally would, because there are letdowns, and this industry is, you know, all about rejection. And as you say, many other industries suffer with that as well. I mean, any type of sales, you're going to be facing tons of rejection. I had read this one thing that was a beautiful encouragement by a young writer, and she was saying every time she got a no letter, she would send off another publication to another publication. She would send off her writing sample. So it's like it almost became
Oh.
an impetus, kind of like you were describing. Like, I just know that no's are a part of the process, and I'm just going to use this no as sort of a time marker for when I'm going to pursue my next yes. So
It's
I
like I
thought
have a
that was,
board. I have a board right now of all
yeah,
my businesses, and I'm looking at them and I'm visualizing them and I'm saying, okay, all right,
yeah.
there's these days that just don't feel great. But if you go and hammer out other
Mm-hmm.
things open up and you get disappointed and say, well, I'm glad I didn't get that. It
Yes,
just, it
yes.
was,
Well,
God
and
didn't really want me to have it.
certainly that's a
Yeah.
part of the picture too, is after you know, a friend of mine has said to me recently multiple times, he's like, rejection is God's protection. And I'm like, that's a comfort to know, because as time passes, usually you can start to see and understand more than you would have in the moment as to why that maybe not have been the best fit for you as a project or as an artist, or, you know, maybe there were other teams and other places you were supposed to be in when that was shooting. And there's just a million things that could be the reason, but you sort of just have to trust and obey.
Absolutely. Yeah. I worked with somebody once who said every no is one step closer to a yes. I thought,
That's
well,
true.
that
I
Yeah.
makes sense. That
like
makes
that.
sense.
Okay.
But you get a ton of yeses.
Well,
You've
thank
done
God for
so
that.
much.
Yeah.
You're award winning, right? I mean, you've been in so many things that, like you said, I'm sure that you're busy all the time. Do you have a favorite project?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I just feel like I'm very boring in the sense that whatever I'm working on right now is like the coolest thing to me. So I love whatever I'm doing next or doing now. Like, and just as prescribed right now, the top two on my list are definitely The Chosen and 47 Days with Jesus. I'm just so excited about the premise of our film. And The Chosen has just been this whirlwind of an experience for everybody involved. Like, they're traveling internationally to premiere this show all over the world to different audiences. They're translating it into, I think, the most languages that any TV show has ever been translated into. So we are just so blessed, and I think thrilled to be a part of this process. And it's an honor and it's a joy for sure.
Now let's talk about The Chosen for a second before we go back in this other project. Think about Kim. How many people have watched The Chosen? And then you go to an area where it's so huge internationally. She's like a rock star going to these different places. How do you get used to that? People recognizing you now. I remember
Oh
the
my
days when I was
goodness.
a professional wrestler going into grocery stores and say, hey,
Yeah.
that guy right there. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And again, because I'm doing more not television and doing more radio, I don't get recognized on that end, but that's
Mhm.
so cool. And then say, aren't you that? And they stare at you. Do you think that's going to come more and more for you? I think it will. I mean,
I think
especially
it
in
has
your career.
it has
Mhm.
already begun. And what's interesting is, you know, we have a new media world. I remember back, you know, I have a lot of mentors in our union and whatnot who have gotten very famous in the time when there was only one place to get famous, which was like cable TV, network TV, and there were only 7 channels. And so if you were on any of those shows, you were internationally famous because that was the media at the time. We're in a new phase where there's so much media and there's so many platforms, and people could just be subscribers of one or two and they may never see your show, right? So it's a little more fortunate in the sense that you could probably still go grocery shopping and you wouldn't be bothering or, you know, be approached by anybody, and you wouldn't be upsetting the environment there. But if you go to the right place, I think, or any church setting or anywhere where your friends are having even an Easter barbecue, I've been recognized at these moments. And so it's very interesting because church used to be like my safe space. It was like nobody ever knew anything about my life is in Hollywood because they were all just really concerned with, you know, the word and the Holy Spirit. And now that we have this crazy international sensation show that they're all watching, and so that's not really, you know, the case anymore. But it's a blessing, and it's fun. And you just have to remember, you know, maybe do your hair in the morning when you leave your house, because you never know who wants a picture with you.
That's luckily
You
I
know?
don't have to deal with that, but sometimes I'm
Yeah,
thinking when
yeah.
my beard gets so going and hair everywhere and like, oh, you never know who you're going to meet out, and I
Right,
can't
right. You
imagine
just don't
as
know.
you two as
Gotta be
women
ready.
always have to be camera ready, especially
Mhm.
if you're getting known. It's like, I don't know how you deal with it, especially if you're going
Yeah,
to do like a tour like this
I
tour, you got to
know.
be camera ready versus, oh, okay, I'm just going to wake up. I could be whatever and just wake up and just
Yeah.
do a radio interview. Like I was doing
Yeah.
it the tour today, and I'm like, oh, most people won't do tours to the afternoon. I'm like, oh, okay, good to know when you do those early morning tours for sure.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, so let's talk more about this film that's coming up because like you said, I think it is so relatable. I mean, people get so busy in their lives, right? They're running to the kids' little league games and they're doing the volunteering at school and all the stuff and work, and then somebody has to do the laundry. I mean, it's like all this stuff, right? And
It's
you can get
true.
disconnected as a couple. And
Hmm.
so I think I'm interested in that part of it is um what do you see with that? Like, because it is so common. So how does the
Yes.
show answer that?
What I think is beautiful is that I think this show sort of takes people on an introspective journey. This film, it has even people who have not been raised in the faith. I've heard wonderful stories of them listening and watching the film and being ministered to by it. Not even as if we're preaching to them, but just little choices that we make on a daily basis that we think only affect ourselves, and how actually there's a ricochet and ripple effect on everyone around us when we make those decisions. And we may be making them for noble reasons, but we still have to take into account the way that that's going to impress upon our children, or our, the lack of time we're being able to spend with our wives or whatever it is. So I think the way they've approached it is they've painted in such a way that anyone can watch this from any background and just see reflections of their own life and decisions that they're making every day, and maybe reconsider, what am I doing that I think is right, but maybe is hurting someone inadvertently that I didn't even plan upon, So I think it brings awareness to that. And I just think the way they've tied in this gospel story is what we're calling the inner story. And it's like these little flashbacks because it's a family tradition from a grandfather trying to share with his grandchildren the story of Easter on the holiday when they're at their parents' house. And so it's a beautiful, I would say, foray into that story in a way we've never really seen it. It's amazing numbers, like choreography and music, that is helping tell the story in a new way, in a family friendly way where everyone can watch it and still impress upon people, the sacrifice that Jesus made in those last 7 days, and what happened when he came back to earth, and what was that like for him and for all of his followers. And so I think it's a really beautiful way to delve into it. And what's nice about the way we're doing it is that I feel like The Chosen right now in theaters is really intense, and people are like,
Right.
bring your tissue boxes and be ready. You're going to get, just like such a heart wrenching experience. And I think with this one, even though it's about really important stuff, I think they've figured out a way to tell the story in such a way that it's almost light. It's like it'll be a breath of fresh air, I think, after the whole season 4 comes out and for Chosen.
So when will this come out? When is this project coming out? The
This
movie.
is coming out in theaters March 11th, 12th, and 14th. And we're just letting everybody know in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like 200 something theaters have been added. It's coming out nationally. There's already 900 theaters that have signed on to air this. And so if your local theater is not playing it, all you have to do is call and request it. And many theaters are getting added that way.
I think
And
that
I know that pre-sales too are really great. So if everybody
Yeah. And the
is
tickets are
listening,
on
buy
sale
your
now. Yeah.
tickets now, right? Yes, yes, and then it'll be in more places. So that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
where all the info is at 47daysfilm.com, all spelled out, no numbers, 47daysfilm.com.
And so, Kim, you're going to have to make sure it's in Grand Rapids if it's not yet, right? That'll be
That's
your
right.
job to
That's
go to
There you
right.
go.
Yeah.
You'll be our Grand Rapids rep.
There you go. I'm happy to do it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for the movie for so many reasons. Of course, it's so timely with Easter right around the
Mhm.
corner, but it also sounds like a movie that is great for teens to watch, great for
Yeah.
to watch as a family. Would
Yes.
you say, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely. The whole family can go, and it's going to be great. I think for everyone will get something out of it.
yeah, it's amazing. I'm so glad that this is even happening because there have
Yeah.
been, Easter stories before, but doing it in this way, I think
Hmm.
just makes it so much more relatable, right? So it's not just back in the day. And
Right.
that's hard to relate to. That can be hard to relate to. The Chosen has helped with that. But for people who haven't seen The Chosen or whatever,
Right.
it's not just back in the day, but it's present time too. So
Mhm.
bringing the two worlds together, I think, is an
Yeah,
interesting way to do it.
Definitely.
absolutely. Yeah.
So you also have acted in not just Christian things. So talk about some of the other projects you've done before that you're known for. That
Yeah,
were outside of it.
I've had a wonderful run in Hollywood. It's been a wild, exciting ride. And I've played on many shows that I love and respect and cherish in so many ways, because even if they're not, overtly, or even remotely faith-based, they still have good moral codes that they operate by. And so, some of the most recent ones that I've had the pleasure of working on are SEAL Team. I think that's just one of the most amazingly done shows about the military. I come from a military family, so for me that's very exciting, and to get to see what these guys have to go through, these guys and gals, is so incredible and intense. And I was lucky. I got to do the easy job. I was an intel officer, so I was just there harvesting data and didn't have to go out into the field. But it was really really a great set and a lot of just solid people. And even some colleagues from a show I worked on Fox with Kelsey Grammer, called Proven Innocent, were there running camera. So it was really great to see them again. And it's funny, like, this is such a gig-based economy, Hollywood, but what you start to understand the longer you're in it is that people you worked with 10 years ago, and this is even true for The Chosen, are working on a show that you're working on now. So it seems like it's always a new thing, but it's really like the same teams are getting together and creating new projects all the time. So a couple of the producers I worked with on my first faith-based film was called Christmas on Salvation Street. And two of those producers ended up working on the first couple of seasons of The Chosen, and one of them is still on. So that's been a joy to like into them at the teal carpet parties and be like, I've been waiting to see you because I keep seeing your name in the credits and I haven't been able to talk to you yet. So it's been fun. And then I just did another beautiful film. This is a short film that I co-produced with a colleague of mine. It's called Along Came a Callback. And what I love about this story, and I think this theme is a through line for what I'm just working on in general right now, because it's definitely a theme in 47 Days with Jesus, and it's absolutely a theme in The Chosen, but it's the theme of forgiveness. And so you get to go on this journey with these two young artists. One's a writer, one's an actor, and they're having a rocky relationship. They end up breaking up, and you get to witness just the raucous comedic ways in which they find each other back in each other's lives, and the forgiveness steps that they have to go through for what they had been through together. So that's another great story, and that's on Omeletto right now. It's streaming on Omeletto Comedy, so anyone can watch it anytime.
Wow, that's so good. What about your
Yeah.
music? You are
Oh
so
my gosh.
gifted. Your voice
Thank
is
you.
absolutely, I love Benefactor, by the way, but I
Thank
love all your
you.
music. Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
what's going on with your music?
It's amazing. I have a beautiful fortune of being able to work right now. I'm in development with a really really talented, platinum award winning or record man, which he's coaching me and developing me and helping me to become, even further in my artistry. So I'm grateful for that, and more news to come soon, as we collaborate. But yeah, I've written lots of things and sang on lots of numbers for different bands and different, artistic endeavors. And Benefactor is a single I released, that has a beautiful music video that was shot by an Emmy award winning cinematographer. And so that's out right now, and you can see that on YouTube. And yeah, more updates to come for sure.
You can't say certain projects till they happen, as you know, they're in the
Until you know
works
the dates. Yeah.
until you know the dates.
Yes.
I sometimes maybe I shouldn't speak about projects till they happen, but it's amazing. I guess when there's NDAs, that's when it happens, right?
There
Before
you
the
go.
NDA,
Yeah.
you can speak on it, but once the NDA
Yeah.
comes, hey, I might be having this project and I'm shooting, and then once you sign the NDA, oh, there's no
I know.
project anymore. It disappeared.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're talking about.
I
Right,
don't know that.
exactly.
No, I'll have to let you
What do
know
you
in four
mean? Yeah.
months. Where's the best
Um,
place people can connect with you, by the way? Where is that best place?
which one? Sorry.
Connect with you. Best place
Oh
you
my
can.
gosh. Yes, I'm on all of the social media platforms, I think. I'm on Instagram, which is just my name, Catherine Lidstone. And then on Twitter, I'm Kate Lidstone, Cate. And I try to do updates on there more frequently, I would say, than on Facebook, but I do have a Facebook page. You're welcome to join that as well. And I have just my website. I have a newsletter you can sign up for. Um, Yeah, and right now I just remembered, Kim, the one thing I didn't say about music is that I'm sort of branching out into the worship category more. I think I've been vaguely doing that in my artistry, and you could see some faith-based themes, but it was never really specific. So definitely branching out into that, and you can see on all my socials right now it just releases of different worship covers as I get more into that world. So stay
All right.
tuned.
Excellent. And the last thing is Kim asks a love question. Go ahead, Kim, with your love question for the
Oh,
podcast. Go ahead.
Yeah, a love question. So,
fascinating.
yeah, I lost my husband 14 years ago, and I was like floundering, and I decided I needed to do something. So I went on this sort of eat, pray, love journey. I dedicated a
Wow.
year to figuring out the true meaning of love using 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind. And I took one
Amen. Yeah.
word or phrase a month to figure out. And the things that I figured out about love just blew my mind, rocked my world. And so I'm always curious because I think if you put 12 people in a room, you'd get 12 different answers if you asked what is love, right?
True.
Yeah, but John says God is love. So if God is
Mm.
love, if you live it, then you're living the right way. But so where does love play a role in your life?
Oh man, I feel like love is like the daily choice. I think it could appear in every moment that you're walking this earth. And we all have moments of getting frustrated or getting angry with each other or expecting more of yourself, or and people, there's all kinds of, we could have such a long thorough discussion about this, but I'll try to wrap it up. But you hear phrases like your self-talk and your um just how you treat other people and all these other things, right? So I guess for me, love is like a constant daily choice, and I have the freedom to love because I was first loved. And so for me, that's, if someone's putting me in a situation that I feel frustrated in, or if they are, not as efficient as I would like them to be, I think it really just always goes back to the golden rule. How would I want to be treated if I were under these conditions or circumstances, or if I were in their position or wearing their shoes? And so it's way easier said than done, but I think love is just, I like to think of it as Jesus's love, and how he just loves everyone exactly where they are. And he doesn't try to force change. He doesn't try to imprison. His love is open and free, and it's a choice, and you can walk into it. And I think that's what we should all be aspiring to every day.
Fantastic. Great answer for
Yeah.
sure. We appreciate it, Catherine. It was such a great to chat with you. I see big things coming for you, even though, as
Wow.
Kim highlighted, they're going to happen. So they
Thank
will.
you.
So we appreciate it, Catherine. Thanks for stopping by. My co-host, Paul Hollis, author of the Hollow Man series, owner of Hollow Man Publishing, and also American Made VA. And we have a celebrity guest. I know he will not say this. He wants me to call him Jason, not Congressman Jason, especially because he was a congressman in my state of Pennsylvania. But go ahead and introduce our guest, Paul.
Great. I'm very excited and pleased to welcome Jason Altemeyer. He is not only a CEO, but he's also a well-informed author, an adjunct professor, and as Neil said, he is actually a former congressman. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Neil. Glad to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
All right. So life after Congress. That's what I'm going to just go right off. It's almost like life after football. And especially you had a decent run. When it's over, it's really difficult, right? It's almost, I wonder if they ever did any research of former congressmen, senators, presidents, what they do life after to really figure out things. There are things to do, but especially in where this is your full-time gig and then it changes completely after you were civilian life to that life, then back to civilian life again.
I've been out of office now for over 11 years, which is hard for me to believe. But I've transitioned, and I look back on that experience with fondness and pride, and I'm glad I got to make a difference and have an experience that I think most people would say is a very positive experience. And what I've found in the last several years is the perception of Congress has changed to such a negative extent. When I first left office, if you're at a cocktail party or something and it comes up, I wouldn't bring it up, but if it comes up, you're a former congressman. People would be impressed. Oh, wow, that's good. But now there's a noticeable difference. And if you reference that you were affiliated with Congress or you were in national politics in some way, more often than not, people will kind of back off. They don't want to have the conversation, or they have a negative impression. And that's unfortunate. And I know we're going to get into the polarization stuff, but when I left office, I was 44 years old.
Okay.
And so I wanted, I guess my goal in thinking about what I was going to do next is I didn't want the pinnacle of my professional career or my life to have happened when I was in my 40s. I wanted to keep going and keep trying to make a difference and just refocus and do different things. And I feel like I've been able to do that. I'm comfortable with life and the way it's played out and how things have moved forward. And again, I'm grateful to have had the experience, but there are other things to do for sure.
Okay, so what were those other things? One, did you have plans? Were you always planning when you did leave office that you had a life after plan, especially younger, because you're a younger congressman than some, right? And they could have been there forever, for even longer, as some of them are in their 70s, and for sure.
Yeah, interestingly, even before Congress, I was a congressional staffer and I had been a government relations executive. So I spent a lot of time in Washington on that. And I had worked for a trade association, a national trade association, and I always had that as a goal. I always wanted to lead a national association for a cause that I believed in and felt like I could make a difference. And I did always think when I left office that would be a direction that I would want to go. And I didn't do it immediately after I left office, but it's what I'm doing now and have been doing for the past 4 years. And I really enjoy it. I still keep my finger in the pie with regard to DC and Capitol Hill, and get to talk to members and deal with issues that are important to America. But I also, get to live in Florida and enjoy life, I think, a little bit more than I would otherwise have if I was still in DC.
Yeah, for sure. And especially, where did you grow up in Pennsylvania? Just real quick, and I'm going to jump back to the next question.
Grew up in Western Pennsylvania, a little town called Lower Burrell, which is in Westmoreland County. Burrell High School was the high school.
Okay. All right. So I was born in Shadyside, grew up in Edgewood. Then now I'm in O'Hara Township, but I was in the North Hills, Pine Richland area for like 25 years. I was in Texas for 2 years too. Let's kind of, like trying to understand this. Why didn't you do that first? What your plan was when you first left office?
My plan, when I first left office, because I lost the primary, there was a lot of time in between. It was in April. So there was a lot of time in between the end of my term. So I had time to kind of sit back and think about what I wanted to do. And that also gives folks that are looking for folks to approach. And one of the groups that did that was the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida. I had a healthcare background, had been an executive for a large hospital for UPMC, which you certainly know in Pennsylvania. And I have always been fond of Florida. My wife's from Florida. I went to Florida State and have spent a lot of time. So I was really intrigued by that. It was a senior vice president position for a $20 billion company.
Wow.
So I felt very good about the opportunity, and have been. It's outside of Jacksonville. We live in Ponte Vedra Beach, and I've been here for 11 years. I wrote the book, which I think you want to talk about, in 2017. So I left that role and traveled the country on a book tour, which is really one of the greatest experiences of my life, because you go out and you talk about an issue that matters and that people care about, and you see the passion and get to visit other parts of the country. And I really enjoyed the book tour. And then afterwards, I got COVID came along, and I got a doctorate at University of Florida in business administration, because I really got into academic research. And writing my book, I was intrigued by the process of how research is done. And then during the presidential transition in 2020, the association that I now lead went through a leadership transition, and I took this role and have been there ever since.
All right. So let's talk about the book, then the association and polarization. That's perfect segues. First, the book. Why the book, and what did you want your readers to find out about you?
The book is called Dead Center, and it's, it came out in 2017, so it's been a while. But I was writing about political polarization and the danger that it represented to the country. And I did three things. I talked about the causes of polarization, what leads to it. And then I had academic research in there about how partisans think, what makes them tick. If you present them with information that conclusively proves their point of view is wrong, will they accept it? How do they react in groups? How does extremism, and the movement to the left and the right work, and why does it happen? And then I weaved in examples from my own career in Congress from how polarization impacts public policy and what's it like to be a centrist in a polarized Congress. Yeah. And the book did really well. Again, it was called Dead Center. And I spent 8 months traveling around talking about it and did all the shows, and it sold well. And still, I hear that universities use it around the country as a textbook when political science classes look at polarization. And I still speak about it all the time. We're doing a podcast on it right now, but it's unfortunately gotten worse. I regret to say that I was right about kind of forecasting where the country was headed, and it's not gotten better. And unfortunately, that's tainted the perception people have of all of our institutions, of the media, of politics, of higher education. And I think that's really unfortunate for the country.
It definitely is. And so as I've grown to get older, I've been on both sides. When I was an educator, as a young age in my 20s, I was a Democrat. Then I became a Republican when I started having a family. And now I consider myself center. I think and I'm not, as a former professional wrestler coming back into professional wrestling, I think it's kind of a work in a way that a lot of times the media makes it that you guys hate each other more than you really do. And you have relationships with a lot of people, and that it's the political infringe of people on both sides that are the definitely media wants to make it look worse. And definitely there's certain people that believe everything. And that causes the not know that, you don't hate people who are Republicans. You don't hate people that are just are like angered at anyone in your party that was far left of what they're doing. You don't agree with their policies. Some of them, like you don't agree with some of the rights policies, but it's not like this hatred that is going on in our nation. It's very hard for me to even have a Republican on my show because I will have people that literally will pull their stuff. Now, if I have a Democrat on my show, none of my Republican clients, none of my Republican friends, none of them would get mad at me. They could care less. I interviewed Bill Ayers, for God's sakes, and they didn't have a problem with me at all. But if it's the other way around, if I bring somebody in that might be a little bit of a conspiracist, might be willing in these things, how dare you put him on the airwaves? Well, I can go put Bill Ayers on the airwaves. I can go bring Jason Altmaier on the airwaves. I can bring on somebody who believes in many different things that the right doesn't. They're not crucifying me. So there's the difference in the polarization. But yet, both sides don't like each other, far, far right and left. And how can we get people more into the center so we can become a more united nation?
Well, I think as a nation, the majority of America is more towards the center, not the people in politics, but just normal folks. They wake up every day. They think, what's my work schedule today? What am I going to do on the weekend? Who's my sports team play tonight? They are not thinking about Washington and what's my congressman doing, and the problem is the people that wake up every day thinking about politics, generally, it has been my observation, and the research shows this, they have an unhealthy obsession with it. They are far more extreme than most Americans. And when you look at, for example, the Pew Research Center, they do every 3 years a typography study of the country. They found that about 1/3 of Americans identify on the political extremes, the far left or the far right, equally distributed between the left and right. And that number has grown and continues to grow every time they do it. But still, 2/3 of the country are not. And the problem is the people who are on the extreme, they contribute to candidates and work on campaigns. They give money to candidates. And most importantly, they vote in primaries at double the rate of everybody else.
Oh, wow.
So they have outsized influence. You live in Pennsylvania, I live in Florida. They're both closed primary states. So the people who are advantaged by that are the candidates that can tailor their message and speak to the extremes. And unfortunately, then you get to the general election and the normal folks show up. Everyone else, comes out for the general election. They say, why are these my choices? I have somebody on the far left and the far right. Why can't we have somebody in the middle? I don't like either of these choices. And unfortunately, to a degree, that's playing out at the national level too.
Oh, it totally is. But it's good. But see, here's the also problem we're dealing with. It's good for business. When both sides hate each other, there's more opportunity, better ratings. Okay. We all miss when the Steelers lose, they get better ratings for the Steelers, meaning all the channels and everything when the Steelers lose than when they win. Mm-hmm. So it's always about that. That's why most of the news is bad news, right? That's on the local TV. It's never really heartfelt stories. So the more that they were polarized, the more money the big corporations make that are funding the big channels, the more the people get stressed, which can lead to a lot more people on blood pressure medications or different things. And the fear keeps people in a control factor. So I think when you look at polarization of the country, I think that they'll never want this to end because it's bad business. Am I thinking crazy in this or not?
Yeah, here's something that's interesting along those lines that I get asked if I was to write sort of a second book or an addition to my book, what's changed in the past 5 to 7 years. One of the things that has noticeably changed is, cable news has always been a driver of polarization because right. It used to be in 1980, let's say, you had 3 choices. You had Walter Cronkite, David Brinkley, or John Chancellor for the evening news. That was it, a half hour at night. And if you wanted to watch Wheel of Fortune, you had to sit through the evening news to get there. And people were more civically minded and engaged because they were forced to watch the news, even if they didn't want to, because they wanted to get to. Well, now you can watch the Kardashians, you can watch sports, you can watch right. Home and Garden Network, you can watch Netflix, whatever it might be. So the people who care about politics, as I was saying before, they gravitate to the cable news. They generally cater to the extremes. But here's where I'm going with this. The people who are elected to public office now are much more inclined, because of social media that we were talking about earlier, because of cable news. They want to get on TV, right? They want to go viral. And you see on both sides that people who would have been backbenchers in Congress for years, maybe for their entire career, are now celebrities because they know how to use social media, because they say crazy and incendiary things
and that draw
an audience. Mm-hmm. And I get asked all the time by students. I'll go speak to a college class and somebody will say, I want to get into politics. How do I do it? And I say, why do you want to get into politics? What's your goal? And they kind of look and I say, because we don't need more people who think politics is cool. They want to go into politics because they think it would be a neat thing to do, or they want to be in front of the spotlight on TV. We need people who want to make change, who want to make a difference for their community, and whatever that means to them, whatever issues are important. And you need to show that you have a commitment to your community rather than doing it for yourself. But the people who are in Washington today, I can absolutely say with certainty, compared to 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, are much more inclined to run in front of the camp. And politicians have always been that way. I'm not, right. Definitely to the 99th percentile of most Americans, but it's even much worse today. And it has an impact on public policy. I co-chair a board called the Center for Effective Lawmaking, and it is jointly housed at University of Virginia and Vanderbilt University. And what they do is they look at the legislative effectiveness of members of Congress. How effective are they at moving legislation? You introduce a bill, how far does it go through the process? And there's a ton of variables involved, including the significance of the bill and what committees you serve on and all the rest. But the point is, if every 2 years they release the list of every member of Congress, most effective to least effective. And what is uncanny about it is, if you look at the people who are the most effective members of Congress, I can promise you nobody has ever heard of them. They are names you do not see on TV. You don't read about them in the paper unless it's in your local district. No one around the country would know who these people are. But if you look at the bottom of the list, the people who can't get anything done, that their legislation doesn't move at all, I guarantee you, you will know every name, both on the right and the left. It's the people you see every night on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN pontificating about, how they wish things were. But when they have the opportunity to move legislation, they don't do it because that's not what they're there for. They're there to get on TV. There is a direct relationship between how much of a media presence you have and how effective you are as a legislator.
So, Jason, what I'm hearing from you is I don't know if you would have wanted to be in politics today compared to when you were in politics before.
I couldn't be. I wouldn't fit in. I wouldn't be happy. And candidly, I couldn't win today. I couldn't win a primary campaigning as a centrist. I was pretty lucky in retrospect that I caught the very tail end of when you could be viable with that kind of candidate. I used to have as my tagline for all my campaign speeches the first time I ran, I'm not going to be someone that walks on the floor and looks at my leadership and says, how do you want me to vote? That's not me. I'm going to look at the district, I'm going to look at the issue, and I'm going to vote for what I think is right. And you can say that, but then what I found was I was a Democrat, but I'm sure the same applies on the other side. They don't really believe that. And when I implemented that methodology in the way I operated as a member of Congress, I got a lot of pushback from the Democrats because they said, well, that's not what we want. Well, today you couldn't get elected even with that type of mentality. You have to toe the party line. And if you in any way stray from party orthodoxy, you are going to face a primary. And as a first-time candidate, you certainly could not viably run a campaign.
Is that a concern that it's going to get further left and further right, and the parties are going to be not for the people at all?
Yes, I would say I hate to be pessimistic. There are some for whom that is not a pessimistic statement. There are people who root for that outcome, but I view that as a negative outcome, and I do feel like we're heading. We keep when you think it can't get any worse with regard to polarization, it continues to get worse.
It will, but I also think it's good. It would be interesting to talk to Murdoch, talk to whoever owns these big. They love it. This is exactly what they want. Newsmax now, how it's grown extremely large based on polarization and just different places. And then the sponsors love it because look at what, doing a Twitter live, interviewing Vladimir Putin and how much money is probably made off of that it's changed, absolutely changed,
I would like to see a study on the people who have made their career in the media since President Trump came onto the scene as a political candidate. He was obviously famous before politics, but from 2015, 2016 on, because if you are a Republican in particular who is willing to say something negative about President Trump, they will put you on TV. You have a full-time gig. And what was interesting is after he lost and he kind of, for a little while, faded away and wasn't in the news quite as much, all those people, they weren't asked on the shows anymore. But now you're starting to see them come out again because of the way the campaign has played out. But more people made their careers off of talking about Donald Trump, I bet you, than anyone in American history has driven
that pushes the social media and is look at me talking algorithms with you before we got on, right? And social media is not the easiest thing in the world, and it's really gamed now. It's not your number of followers anymore. This is another dangerous part, and this is I'll credit this to Neil Patel and Eric Sue, a marketing school podcast. They're really well-known digital marketers. They flat out said, it doesn't matter. We have really made it so that it doesn't matter how many followers you have in social media anymore. It's all about the content you've created and how many people are engaged on it. And your last post is what's considered your post. So people can come out of nowhere, talk about specific things. And I think these politicians see that now. Oh my gosh, if I go and get a great camera work and say something crazy, I wouldn't agree with that kind of audience, but now I will.
Yeah, and the ability to find like-minded compatriots did not exist before. So I always use this as an example. The guy who used to sit in his mother's basement yelling back at the TV because he was angry had nowhere else to go. He was completely alone and isolated. Now he can get on any social media and find people that feel and are just as angry as he is. And then they organize and they talk to each other and they get each other angry.
Right.
And as you said, there's hundreds or thousands of people that are tweeting back at each other about the same thing when they used to just be alone in the basement yelling at the TV.
Exactly. And look at Elon Musk, who's allowed free speech. And that would be a question to finish up our interview. What are your thoughts? Now allowing Twitter/X to be the only real platform that's not set up for a party where there's no real, what is your thought of free speech on social media? How should that be handled? And how have other platforms not allowed certain things that Republicans say, if you're against the vax, you could literally even if you had a guest on and you were doing it and you put it on as misinformation at that time when it's come out, it's not all misinformation. What are your thoughts of the censoring of social media and media in general?
I think there is a role for what you described to be censorship for things that have a chance of violence or hurtful speech. I mean, I do think there's a role to kind of tone it down on things that could degenerate into something really bad happening. But with that exception, it's the public square, and people have a right to be wrong. They have a right to say whatever it is they want to say. And you see it, sports, politics, and religion are the three things that drive people crazy the most. And they say idiotic things because, they have, with religion, I shouldn't say idiot. I didn't mean that with religion, but the real beliefs. But they say things that are out of the mainstream to most people. And I think that's fine, right? I mean, there's a role for that. But if you are passing along information that has a negative impact in a way that it could hurt people, like physically hurt people or turn into violence, then, I think there's a role to force them to tone it down.
Well, I've made a decision as a media company that I'm going to have both the left and right. I've never said no to anyone, but I've been afraid at times to post it everywhere. At this point, I'm saying I'm a journalist. I take both sides. I can't take a side because I want to be friends with everybody. I want to have and that's the center, and really have relationships with both sides and relationships. Linda McMahon's going to be on my show in a couple of weeks to talk about her think tank. It'll be interesting to hear her, and then a couple other people that were in the Trump administration at that time. But ultimately opening up the door for other Democrats to come on the show as well. I've had lots of actors and actresses that have been able to give their speech for the Democratic Party. But hey, everyone's open to come on the Neil Haley Show. Best place we can find information on you. Where can we go, Jason?
I have a website. It is my name, jasonaltmeyer.com. If you Google it, I'm sure it comes up. And really interested still in polarization. I speak about it all the time. So anyone who's interested in comparing notes, you could reach me through there, and I'm happy to chat with anybody about it.
All right. Thanks again, Jason, for stopping by. I appreciate it.